just a few things about levees and floodplains that we need to go over before we move on. So one of the things that we haven't quite got yet is what a levee is. A levee forms in the lower course of a river, near where the river enters the sea. So that's called in geography the river mouth. And all it is a mound on the banks of the river. And it's just made up of sediment, so things that the river is carrying, that are dropped by the river when the river floods. When a river drops things in geography, we call that deposition. So we'd say levees are mounds on the riverbank formed by deposited sediment. You can see them in the diagram here, along the riverbanks, and in the picture, here's an actual levee. Second thing we need to go over is why a river deposits its load when it floods. The load is the word for what a river is carrying. So we can call the things that a river is carrying load, or we can call them sediment. A river's load is made up of sediment. Now, rivers deposit when they lose energy. When a river is flowing in the channel, here's the channel. The channel is quite deep. That means there's very little friction between the water and the river banks at the side of the river and the river bed at the bottom of the river. So we can see this red arrow here shows that the river channel is deep. Therefore, there is less friction, so the river has a lot of energy. We can tell it's got a lot of energy because it flows quickly. In geography, we use the word velocity to talk about the speed of water. So in the river channel, there is less friction, so the river has a high velocity. When a river floods onto the floodplain, can you see that it becomes more shallow? There's a lot smaller length between the top of the water and the bottom of the ground. It's more shallow. Because it's shallower, there's more friction, and that friction slows the river down, meaning it has a lower velocity, and another way of saying that is it's got less energy. And when a river's got a lower velocity and low energy, it deposits sediment. So that's why we get deposition when a river floods. Right, we need to know the difference between what levees are made up of and what floodplains are made up of. When a river floods, water moves from the river channel outwards over the land around the river. And we know that when a river moves from the river channel onto the land around it, when it floods, it loses energy. Because it's lost energy, it can't carry the heavy things that it was carrying before. The technical way of saying that is the heaviest sediment is deposited first. The river drops the heavy things first. So the levees are made up of heavy sediment. The river can carry the lighter sediment for longer. So the lightest sediment is deposited last and it forms the floodplains. So floodplains are made up of light sediment. Levees are made up of heavy sediment.